Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Adam, Kenny, and Lady Chow Fung for another episode of Wuxia Weekend. Today we're going to be talking about Wing Chun, a 1994 film. This is Yuen Woo-Ping's dramatization of the story of Wing Chun's founder, Wing Chun. It stars Michelle Yeoh, Donnie Yen, and Norman Chu. It's basically kind of it's a martial arts comedy that, uses a folk tale, but is... I don't know. How would you guys describe this story? Would you say that it's sort of in the vein of something like Drunken Master or
Robin Hood, Men in Tights?
Okay. Okay.
Is
let's get people's opinions then. Let's have people weigh in. So starting with Kenny, why don't you guys go through and give your opinions on the film?
Like I really enjoyed the movie, but I feel like because we only had the dub version available, a lot of it was lost. Like I feel like it would have been funnier, especially one of the sort of things that stuck out to me is probably a joke in Cantonese, but not so much in the English version. Is the Abacus Fong character? Basically, they're all saying how she stinks and stuff, right? And basically her breath smells. But in Cantonese, having a stinky breath also means a person who chats shit all the time. Basically, is the closest way I can
I
translate
get
it.
you. So
So it was like one of those little things that I'm thinking, they did try to do it. They did a fairly decent job of like conveying that she was trash talking all the time, even to her brother and and to everyone else around her. But I don't think, and then also had the whole literal aspect of everyone like shrinking away from her whenever she likes breathing on them, which is quite amusing. But I feel like a little bit of it was missed in the dub. And I did actually recognize a lot of the actors. I think this is probably like my era of watching random TV dramas and movies, and all of these actors are very familiar to me. So it was nice seeing them crop up in the movie.
And also in the subs of one of my versions, I think they mentioned that the source of her breath is something to do with the tofu that she eats, which seems like it's a little bit more relevant.
Tofu? Yeah, could be stinky tofu.
I think that's what they said. Yeah, I think they
Yeah.
said stinky tofu. So what about you, Lady Chow Fung?
I liked the movie. I thought it was funny. I did kind of feel like there was something missing, but I'm not a dub person, so the voices were kind of irritating to me. But I enjoyed the movie, and it wasn't what I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be something completely different, but I enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah, and I got to agree. I think the dubs made it harder on this movie because I don't, I like you both pretty much said, it's like comedy. But you're not getting any of the actors' comic timing or their expressions and stuff. It's kind of filtered through this really over the top, dubbed voice acting, which I think may have lost something there. But I enjoyed the movie too. I mean, it's really well made. The fight choreography was really good. Just the performances in general were entertaining. It's largely just a silly kind of comedy. I wasn't like, deeply into it, but it was just a good solid entertaining movie.
And I should say too that when I first saw this, I saw it with subs rather than dubs, and I definitely think that your assumptions are all correct. I don't know if others would agree with me, but the having the non, just not have the dub voices. Occasionally they can add things. So in this movie, the thing that it adds is you can really see the physical comedy without getting distracted by the subtitles. But you really do miss the timing of a lot of the stuff, and just some of the voice acting in this was kind of odd. It just didn't. It just kind of was a little too over the top at times, and landed a little funny, I think. But yeah, so I mean, I enjoy the movie. I think I should have warned everybody that this is going to be a little bit more silly than some of the movies we've been watching. And and I just
It was
didn't
kind of
occur to
nice,
me.
actually. It was like a nice change of pace to have something that was just silly, because we have had a lot of serious movies lately.
But and I was saying this before the podcast. As silly as it is, it tackles so many themes that are of interest to academics and stuff that a whole book has been written on the movie. And you'll see all kinds of articles on it on this subject. For me, it's just one of my favorite sort of kung fu comedy movies. That's what it just is a. I like Michelle Yeoh. I like Norman Chu. I like the Donnie Yen's great, but also the characters in it. Like I like Abacus Fong is a really memorable character, and Scholar Wong, who people might remember from A Better Tomorrow as the bad guy. In this, he's kind of a goofy scholar and just an interesting character who ends up getting paired off with Abacus Fong. So why don't we get into individual characters then to begin with, I suppose. What did everybody think of Wing Chun, played by Michelle Yeoh, in this?
I thought it was interesting because she's kind of it's a really kind of wacky comedy, but she's playing almost kind of a very dramatic kind of role. There was kind of a lot. I'd say I got the most feeling from her character in the movie. I mean, it's not that she felt out of place or anything, but she was kind of the only character I kind of developed some real kind of sympathy for as the movie went on.
I liked her. I felt like she was the straight person to everybody else's tomfoolery going on around her. And I liked that about her. She was just so serious and didn't want to put her beauty out there. She was more about her martial art. And so love wasn't in the picture. But, she had to defend everybody because she was the best in the village, obviously. But, I liked that she was the straight person to everybody else's tomfoolery.
Yeah, I really liked her in the movie as well. I had a chance to watch it once. So one of the questions that I had about her character was why was like, okay, so they did mention that she was forced to marry someone, right?
Just described
at
him as
17.
a villain in the
As a villain, yeah, at 17, and then she basically ran away from the marriage and found and found a master who taught her kung fu. But why was she dressed like why did she have to dress in male clothing?
I think it's a little bit unclear, but she says during that story that her teacher told her that if she mastered kung fu, she would be good at fighting, but she would lose her femininity. And I think she just said, okay, well, I made the decision to do that, and so she focused entirely on the martial arts, and she's not worried about being feminine. But maybe also because of that history, she doesn't want to attract any villains that would seek marriage with her. But I don't.
It's interesting. I wonder if there was like a translation issue, because she says when she's telling the story that she was told. Well, I know you said it's different than what was in the dubbed version, which was that she said that she wouldn't be able to marry if she studied martial arts. That's what her master told her. But when she goes with her master's like, oh, you need to go find a man, And so it's like I was kind of perplexed by that. So,
what were you going to say, Kenny?
I don't remember. Sorry.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
I'm sorry, Kenny. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
But yeah, I know. I don't know, because for this viewing, I watched the same version that you guys did. I watched the one that's up on Amazon, and that one is the dub version. And I actually didn't rewatch the subtitled version. But I do remember a couple of differences. There was also, I think, in the scene where she said "find a man," in one of the sub versions that I have, I think she says something more like "you're a layperson." Like you're a householder, something like that. So I think it was sort of in the context of Buddhism, maybe. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And that itself could have been a translation issue. So I don't know.
I think I remember what I wanted to say. I mentioned that the fact that Wing Chun was a woman was were not really a secret. Like she was not particularly going out of her way to hide it, and everybody around her seemed to know. And she seemed to have a lot of conflict with men in general at the beginning of the movie. Like all the villagers were sort of against, all the male villagers were against her for no good reason, really, other than the fact that she was good at kung fu, and maybe. And then there's also they were always sort of jeering at her, like, "Oh, you should go have some babies or whatever," right? And I wonder if that's sort of like why she's refusing to sort of conform to the stereotype that women should stay and have babies by dressing up as a male and kicking all their asses at kung fu.
Well, I think that's probably a big part of it, because I mean that's really kind of like the core thing of the movie is all of these guys are like, no, she can't be better at us than martial arts. And like even up to the conflict with the bandits, which is like the main fight throughout the film, that's really about her beating them at kung fu and them deciding that she needs to die because she's outmatched them.
Yeah, because it's funny because the '90s was like a sort of period where feminism was seeing like a huge upsurge in media from Hong Kong. They were depicted, either as kick-ass martial artists or women of high position in companies and stuff, like who are always like stern and strict and really career focused type people, right? People who are women who are focused on one thing or one thing in their lives and they're just chasing it. And a lot of those sort of TV series and movies, and this one as well, seem to be sending a message that it's fine to be a strong, independent woman, but at the same time, you can also have the aspect of femininity in your life. You can have a family, you can have a loving husband, and not lose any of your independence, as it were.
Well, and also in this movie we had three very different kinds of women. We had Wing Chun, who's like a martial artist and like this brave woman, and you have Abacus Fong, who's got really good business sense and is like she's basically the most successful person in the family, it looks like, in terms of making money and things like that. And then you have Charmy, who basically says that she doesn't have either of their skills, and it needs to find a husband because she doesn't have any other real way of making it in the world. I think this film is usually looked at through the lens of being a feminist type film. I know that one of the writers on it was a woman. The script writer, I want to get the name right, was Elsa Tang, and there was also a man who contributed to the script too. But I don't know. I guess moving on to the next character in that Trinity. What do you guys think of Abacus Fong, the auntie character?
I like her. I've seen her in so many shows, and she's always got this sort of quirky, snappy attitude. I'm sure, like if we could have heard the audio in its original form, you'd be able to get a good sense of her comedic timing as well. Like she has a really good. She paces her words really well, and she snaps in at just the right time to make things really funny. But it was a little bit lost in the dub, and she's been sort of typecasted as well as the sort of spinster type. The ones who seem very unlikely to find happiness. And end up a bit bitter in life about it, type of thing. But she always ends up in a good position at the end of whatever movie or series she's in. But it's just one of those unfortunate things where she's been typecasted as this type of character.
Yeah, I liked her a lot too. I mean, it's impressive how much of her comic skills came through the dub. I mean, like I say, it definitely weakened it, but I still really thought she gave a strong comedic performance even through that.
Yeah, I think her physical comedy through her expressions was excellent. I really liked her character. I think the only thing that I would have I missed seeing with her, I think she should have had some kind of cigarette or something. I don't know. There was something about her character that was begging for her having a cigarette hanging off her lip or between her fingers every time you saw her on screen. But she was just so funny. And I thought she was delightful in her spinster ways and her little pact with Wing Chun, and then she gives up the pact in order to find love, but tricking someone into it was hysterical. That whole plot to get the whole plot to get Scholar Wong I thought was funny.
That was pretty hysterical. Yeah. I thought.
I thought she and Wing Chun had really, Michelle Yeoh's character. I thought they had really, really good chemistry too. I got to admit, looking back on it, there were a lot of points I kind of believed the connection between those two characters and everything. It felt there was kind of a good family relationship there between them.
And I think you're right about the physical stuff too, because I felt like. I especially when I was watching it this time, I was like that. Like the things she's doing demand a lot of foresight and like choreography, even though you don't really notice it the way you would notice, somebody taking off a person's head with an axe or the tofu scene or whatever. It's not that kind of thing that sort of screams out at you. But when you're paying attention to it, you're like, oh, there's a lot of little movements she's doing in this dialogue that I don't think I could even remember to do. It seems very... It seemed like there's a lot of physical stuff going on in her performance. What about Charmy, the I guess the widow in the movie, because she shows up with her sick husband, and the plot for her is that he dies, and she has to sell herself in order to pay for the funeral expenses, and she is she's sort of rescued by the auntie and by Yim Wing Chun with the help of Scholar Wong's money.
It's funny because she's the only one of the three who doesn't really end up with anyone. Or I guess she's probably happy by the end of the movie, but strictly speaking, it's not a happy ending for her. If that makes sense.
No, it's a pretty sad ending for her, I think.
Yeah, but both of the guys that she had her eye on, one's gone off with the spinster, and the other one's gone off with her good friend, and she's just basically watching their weddings, right? So it's really sad for her. And
go ahead.
I don't know. I was gonna say or are they trying to communicate that if you can't just be a woman with the without aspirations? You can't just be thinking, oh, I'm going to marry a rich guy or marry a handsome guy and let them look after me for the rest of my life. You have to take your destiny in your own hands, and especially if you're a spinster like Abacus Farm, or fight for your love.
Yeah, it's an interesting interpretation there.
Yeah, I felt kind of sad for Charmy at the end, because you would have thought she would, because she was so beautiful, that she would have ended up with one of the two, but she ended up with nobody, not even someone coming out of the crowd saying that you're beautiful and everything. So, I mean, she just basically ended up alone, but she was, out of the three, the one with the least amount of skills, and she really did need someone to take care of her. I didn't see her as like a smart character or a shrewd character or just an intelligent enough character. She was more ditzy than anything to me. So I thought she kind of needed somebody. And I was hoping that one of the two would end up with her, but neither one of them did. But I liked who they ended up with. I thought the pairings at the end were perfect.
Well, also, if you pay attention to Abacus Fong early in the movie, you can tell that she is interested in Scholar Wong from the very beginning.
Oh, yeah. From the very beginning.
But yeah, I felt with Charmy though. I had the feeling it's like she's gonna get another crack at a guy. It was sad in the moment, but it's like there's no way she's going to suffer in loneliness for the rest of her life. That's not going to be a problem for her. If any of it was going to end up with someone at the end, no one at the end of the movie, it should be her because she can bounce back.
I guess that's she was pretty much the most desired character for 3/4 of the movie, so. She's probably going to end up okay.
At least that's what I'm telling myself. So.
Now, what about... I'll take these guys in twos, but what about Flying Monkey and Flying Chimp, played by Norman Chu?
I really liked Flying Chimp was the master, right?
Yeah.
Like he was a really honorable guy. Like, well, for all intents and purposes, like, sure, he kidnapped Charmy to try to force Wing Chun to go to his fortress and fight him. But once they were there, he kept his word. He let Charmy go, and he fought her one on one. Forbade any of the men from like helping out or anything there. I felt like he could have been a decent guy. He took a few wrong steps in his life that ended up in his current situation. And to be fair, and I was thinking like, if Charmy had to end up with anyone, like I could almost see her ending up with Flying Chimp.
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought of that. That provided she can look past all of his misdeeds earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, he does end the movie on the right path, so
he turns it around very quickly. He definitely
he does turn on a dime.
Well, he does after a butt beating, so I mean, he gets his butt whooped, and then he has to call her mommy. So,
I guess it's sort of it's one of the things that sort of perplexed me the first time I saw the movie, and it's become something that I really like about it because it says so much about his character by the end of it that he like you said, he is sort of living up to his word because he's the one that makes that the stakes of the fight. He's the one that says, "I'll call you mommy if you win," or "I'll call you mother" or something. Yeah.
And I'm sure that was a pun in Chinese as well, because the word for wife and the word for mother share a common character between them. So okay. I'm sure there was some sort of wordplay going on there.
And the whole movie is like the theme is all about like the role of women in society and all this stuff. So I think that would make total sense. What did I want to get to her before we forget her, even though she's a very minor character. But what did people think of the Cheng Pei Pei cameo as her master, as Mistress Wu?
I like the cameo. I mean, it's just I don't have any deep thoughts about it, but I mean, seeing Chang Pei Pei pop up for a few minutes in the movie was nice. I enjoyed the cameo.
Yeah, me too. I agree. It's nice to pay homage to the woman who kind of started it all. It's kind of like Michelle following in her steps, and I think it was nice to have her in there as, kind of like a transition over to this is the new star of the wuxia martial arts films. I thought it was nice. I really liked her. And the walnuts, though. Did she bite the walnut?
She bit the walnut and lost a tooth. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought happened.
She was making the point that you can't confront. Here's what I think. I think she was saying you can't confront hard power with hard power. You'll just break your tooth, basically. So it's much better to, use power against itself. And so so that's why she cracked them on the tree, because the tree's this, like rigid thing. There's a lot of phallic imagery in the movie, and that clearly is one of them. And she just uses the power of that to break the nuts. The thing I was wondering about is whether that pun, if that carries over culturally, because in America I was like laughing out loud when I saw that scene. And
no, I don't think that. I don't think so. Although to be fair, that's a lie, because I remember distinctly in the Stephen Chow movie, like one of those sort of weird censorship scenes where people are, like cracking eggs into flour and like cracking nuts, and to sort of like hide the fact that someone was getting their balls like busted.
Okay, so and also I mean English is spoken over there, so it's not like it would you know what I mean. But yeah, so it was but that was, I thought the point of that scene was so that when she goes, that's why when she fights Flying Chimp, she basically starts like he'll be leaping at her in the air and she just kind of kicks him with her foot, and all of his force is going right into the attack. But yeah, so who else? I don't want to forget anybody. Oh, Scholar Wong. What did people think of Scholar Wong?
I thought he was an interest. Like I recognize him, and he has a very wide range of roles, and it's nice to see him in the comedic role. I like this character. I mean, I think that he was actually a perfect fit for Abacus Fong, just in terms of like he's like this sort of shrewd kind of guy who's like not really like capable of doing anything. He's pretty useless, except apparently with an abacus, which he pulls out at the end, towards the end, out of nowhere for some reason. It was like at the moment he pulled it out, I was like, yeah, that's a match made in heaven. They can be the two abacuses of this of this region.
I loved how he was doing the calculations. Like, she basically tricks him into sleeping with her, and then he's mad that he's lost his chastity, and she says, "Don't worry, I'll take responsibility for my actions." And he does that calculation, and it's pure finances. It's just but it makes total sense. They're both very fiscally minded from the very beginning of the film.
Yes,
and it's funny because sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say they're both, like you said, schemers, but they're schemers around money. They're both trying to get the most out of what they paid for. So they were definitely a perfect match.
I was just going to ask, like, what was his interest with Wing Chun at the beginning? Like,
he wanted a guard. He wanted someone to guard his house. And he didn't want to have to pay for it, so he said, "Hey, if I marry her, she'll do it for free, and I just got to pay for her food." And so,
gotcha.
So like,
I got that
purely...
part, but I wasn't... Yeah, I understood that part. But I wasn't really sure. Like, okay, but what are you hiring her for? I must have missed the part where
I think he wanted her as a house guard. I think it was to do with the local bandits. I don't know if they say that explicitly, but I felt that because these bandits were around, that was the thing that he was probably worried about. And so I guess he just sort of is. But then when he saw Charmy, he kind of forgot about that. I guess, I don't know.
He was chasing scats, basically.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Adam. Did you want to say something? I think we might have.
Oh no, I think it's kind of been covered. Yeah, I really enjoyed the character a lot. He just nailed the part.
Now, what about Lung Pak To, Donnie Yen's character?
He looks so young.
Yeah, he was very young. He was definitely young in this one.
Yeah. And I like that he wasn't the best at the martial arts in the movie. And that he sort of played second fiddle there to Michelle Yeoh. And it's sort of weird how he didn't recognize, he didn't immediately notice that Charmy was completely different from.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do people really change that much? I mean,
we don't know how. What was it? 6 years? Was that how long it had been? That he said 6 years since he'd been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it just seemed like Michelle Yeoh's character was so much older than the Charmy character that there shouldn't have been any confusion. But the confusion obviously lends great to the whole plot with everyone else, him not knowing which one, and it just made it a lot funnier.
I think he just has vision problems.
Yeah.
I mean, looking at Michelle Yeoh and going, "Oh, that's a dude," whatever, regardless of what she's wearing. It's
because the only person I think who made that mistake before was Charmy, and she made it for like 2 seconds before she realized that it was a woman. And he thought she was a man the whole for like the first quarter of the film, or the first quarter that he's in it. And so yeah, I don't know. I think it was just largely for comedy, largely for plot purposes, having him, needing. He kind of slowly figures this out over the course of the movie, and if he figured it out at the beginning, there wouldn't have been much for him to do. So.
No, it is just standard wuxia convention for people to just be utterly oblivious to a woman dressed as a man anyway. So I give it a pass.
It's usually everybody is just as oblivious, and it's just this one guy was the person that didn't seem to get it, and everybody else.
The one who was her old childhood friend at that too.
Yeah.
But,
the one that she seemed to love. They were kind of in love as children, as much as you can be at that age. Before she's forced to marry someone else.
They would gather crickets together and stuff. So,
And then her face changed shape entirely, and she aged at a different rate to him as well. It's just-
So,
uh,
what do people think of the comedy in this? Before we get to the martial arts, sometimes we'll probably have to, by necessity, talk about both the comedy and the martial arts because there's not really that much of a distinction between them. But any of the scenes stand out? Anything that you guys thought worked or didn't work in terms of comedy?
it all seemed to work for me. I think, like I mentioned already, the highlights for me were Abacus Fong. Like she was there purely for the comedy. Well, not purely, but mostly for the comedy, and she did that role really well.
I'll tell you one scene that leapt out at me is particularly funny to me for some reason. That was really subtle to an extent. It's just the scene where Wing Chun is fighting the guy in the store, the fighter guy that's sent in there, and she makes the thing. It's like, oh, if you smash this bean curd, you win the fight. And the guy never seems to care. He seems utterly oblivious to that rule. He's just trying to beat her up, but she is so carefully working through that whole scene to make sure he doesn't smash the bean curd, even though he's just trying to beat her up. It's like he isn't playing by her rules. But that just kind of the whole chemistry of that really kind of made me laugh.
When the whole speech he gave at the beginning, where he's just so dismissive of her, and but he's like
Yeah.
he's got his chest thrust out, and and so it's
Well, exactly.
yeah.
It's like I said. He's yeah. I mean that's he's dismissive of her from the beginning, and he's not even paying attention to that. But it's like she's not going to let him. So mainly the only times he comes in danger of smashing the curd is like when she almost knocks him over and he almost falls on it or something. But I don't know.
There was one moment which wasn't really comedy, I guess, but when the three of them were bathing or whatever and talking, and Abacus Fong was just like, do you think she's horny just because her husband's passed away? I was like, what?
Oh, well, because she's flirting with all these men. Because remember, after her first day on the job, she's doing this thing where she's really playing to the audience, and anytime she talks to a man, she's giving them that look. And so I think she was surprised because she's a widow. Her husband just died, but yeah, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, I just found it hilarious how far the dub went to translate that. I don't know. It's just I don't know if the comedy there was as a result of the dub or if the original language was just as bad.
I mean, I don't know, but my impression from the versions I've seen is that she's supposed to have a really dirty mouth as a character, that sort of, So I think she's just very direct, and there are a lot of scenes, like the scene, the flaming castration scene where the guy gets where Michelle Yeoh throws the. When that guy goes back and he later gets married, there's a scene in this one where he says, "I don't have somebody says, 'Oh, congratulations, you're gonna have lots of children.'" And he starts crying, and he says, "I can't have any kids. I don't have the equipment." In one of the dubs or subs that I have, it's much more crude language that he uses to describe what's happened to himself, and so I don't know which one is more accurate, but I found that the crude one was more funny to me than the I don't have the equipment one.
But just using the word equipment in that time period just made it, I don't know, for me, made it funny when they used
Okay.
words that you knew wouldn't have been appropriate or
it's a
even
little
thought of back
anachronistic.
then. Because, it's like using almost like slang in a time period and in a country where you wouldn't expect that kind of slang to be used.
I've seen TV shows set in this time period from the 90s where people will take out sunglasses and put them on, modern sunglasses, and put them on. So I think I don't know if that was the intention there, but anachronisms are definitely something that I think you'll sometimes see just for giggles. But yeah, I don't know, any other humorous scenes before we move on to the fights? So, I guess we can probably fold them into the fights anyways. I had a few ideas, but what did you guys think of the opening fight sequence at the festival, where we first see the bandits arrive to take Charmy when she's trying to get the holy water for her husband, and then Wing Chun tries to step in, but the men are like, hold off, this isn't your responsibility, it's ours, and they basically don't let her get involved, and then they get their butts beaten, and then she steps in, and then there's a fight, and then it becomes a horse chase, and she rescues Charmy. What were your thoughts on that fight scene?
Well, it was pretty impressive. Well, this is like the second fight scene, basically, right? Because we already had the one outside the tea house.
That's
Technically,
right. Yeah,
she
I'm
doesn't
sorry.
really fight.
Well, she did the thing where she was using, in that scene, she was using Scholar Wong as an intermediary for her martial art. Like she was like, I think she had a stick and she was like causing him to kick people and do things.
But yeah, I liked the horse chase scene. Actually, it was I don't know. It's just fun. It's just unexpected to get like a chase scene. I don't know. It felt a bit out of the blue, but it was just like, oh, well, it works, and it makes sense as well because two people on the horse isn't going to run as fast as one horse, so she easily overtakes them. But I really like the part where she's using the flat of the blade to deal with all the bandits as well. Like there and. Just something about the way that she manages to hold back and not actually hurt any of them. I'm not sure why it's so bloodless. Like, later on we see castration and stuff. So, like, why didn't she just kill all these bandits?
I think
let them run off.
I think to make her more of a good guy was the. Yeah. I think she withholds that kind of, like, we know she's capable of it, but she doesn't pull the trigger on it unless it's really
absolutely necessary. Yeah, she just. To me, it seemed like she was showing them mercy, and she didn't seem to be the kind of person that would just go around killing people in these fights. She'd rather teach them a lesson and send them on their way than to hurt anybody, really, unless it had to be done.
What about now? Adam already kind of mentioned this one, but the bean curd match, the match where she's got the tofu tray and the guy's supposed to be hitting it. I thought there was like a lot of really good martial arts choreography in that scene, and a lot of good performance too. Like when she does like a full leg raise, like her leg is all the way up in the air, and she catches the tofu tray and then plants it on the table. And there's another scene where the table's legs get kicked out from under it, and she uses her leg to clamp the table back. And it's like, I mean, it's not easy to do what she's doing in that scene. Like I can say from experience that's very impressive leg work on her part. Both the flexibility and the, I don't know what you would call it, but like the force and power that she seems to be getting.
And I think we might have talked about this before. What's Michelle Yeoh's sort of background in physical training?
I think dance is her background. I'm not 100% on that, but she, because I've read interviews from her about martial arts, and she never describes herself as a martial artist. She usually says, "I'm not a martial artist. I'm an actress who likes to do as many of my own stunts as possible." And so I think, she's one of these people who's picked up a lot on the sets over the years, and she has a natural aptitude for it, and she might have some background that blends into it. I don't, she also could just be very humble about like any training that she's received. I don't know. But I mean, she might as well be when you see her, because she's doing stuff that, if you learn martial arts, it takes years to learn how to do that. So, I think, the end result is impressive either way on the screen.
Yeah, I like the tofu scene there as well. It feels like a very 90s scene actually, because there's a use of props in a very limited space, and the whole ridiculous thing where she's like spinning the big thing around her. it just orbits her for like a brief second.
Yeah, it's like a boomerang. It's like a boomerang tray of tofu that just goes around her head.
I mean, I remember there's a scene in a different movie with Jackie Chan in it where he's like got a fan and he's doing all sorts of weird like sort of boomerangy stunts with it, and apparently, which was apparently all like real and a single take type thing, and they had to take like hundreds of takes just because Jackie Chan was just like, no, I want to take this fan and I want to
Well,
yeah, do the throwing.
if they're really doing it without effects on screen, then in that case, I would say it's you
Yeah,
know
it just reminded me
it's,
about it. I know the tofu was probably on wires or whatever.
yeah, that tofu tray was on something. I don't think you could. I don't think a tofu tray will naturally carve that path through the air. But a fan I could see. A fan I could see if you throw it just right, it's going to boomerang back.
Yeah.
But I think no matter how many times you throw that tofu tray, it's just going to hit the wall.
That is the firmest tofu as well, because if you take like sort of traditional Chinese tofu and you shake it a bit, it's probably gonna fall apart. So it's also a good advertisement for their shop, I think, because this tofu, even if you shake it a lot, it stays together. But yet,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, but yet, it's soft as silk in your mouth or whatever.
I was craving tofu when I was watching it this time. I definitely was, the scenes with tofu, they make the tofu look pretty delicious. And I'm not much of a tofu eater, but it definitely, I don't know, tofu seemed to be a thing in the movie for sure. And yeah, so I guess then there's the
That's a good thing actually. That's tofu is also like a sim like not like it's a very feminine description. Like if you describe like a man, that's particularly effeminate or whatever, you could say like he's as weak as tofu or whatever, or soft as tofu.
okay.
So I don't know if that's more to the symbolism. They could have been any other type of shop, right? And they chose tofu specifically. So I don't know if that was meaningful. Yeah, if that was a meaningful choice or not, or if it's just me looking into it too much.
Probably right. Yeah, I'm willing to bet that's the case. At least it seems.
Or is it?
reasonable. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, or is it part of the original folktale story
I think
or
it is.
background?
I think it is part of the original folktale. I think she was connected to tofu somehow. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But I think even if she was, the amount of emphasis tofu gets in this is still considerable. But what did you guys think of the? We referenced this fight before, but the fight on horseback between her and Flying Monkey with with her and the staff, and he's got the two axes, and it results in his. I don't know exactly what happens, but he basically gets burned until he's castrated with a fireball.
All the scenes with Flying Monkey have the strange effect of, or a very noticeable thing where they speed up the action.
I think that's reverse crank. I think that's a reverse crank.
Reverse?
Technique. I think so.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what it means. I just know that people call that reverse crank. I don't know if it has anything to do with actually reversing the movie. But I think it's more about the speed that the movie is filmed at.
Ah, okay. I thought it was just a case of like being wire work that was like kept slow and then sped up post production to make it seem like it's more intense movements.
Well, no, I think that's kind of what
is
they'll
that what
do.
it means?
Yeah,
Okay,
but they'll also do
okay.
it, I think, for regular scenes sometimes, just for effect. Like I don't know how slow they have people moving when they apply the reverse crank technique. But yeah, it definitely had that. Well, there was a lot of leaping onto horseback and stuff in that scene, and a lot of people flying. He does a lot of his thing seems to be he leaps in the air and kicks a lot. That was one of his sort of signature moves. And also this scene in a lot of ways kind of mirrors the final scene with Flying Chimp, where except in that scene he's the one with he's got a spear instead of a staff, and she's got the two butterfly swords instead of two axes. But something similar happens where when Flying Chimp is leaping through the air at her, she basically knocks him down, as he's midair, and that's sort of what happens to Flying Monkey.
I think I particularly enjoyed the breakdancing on the horse's butt. That was an outstanding sequence of events there.
What about the final spear match at the end of the movie? The two final. There's two. There's the the spear match where she has to take the spear out of the wall, and then there's the final battle that still involves the spear. But the first one where he lures her there by kidnapping Charming, and then he comes out and he has 4 men carry his spear, and he throws it into a wall and says if she can remove it in 3 moves that she can take Charming and go. And so a lot of the fight is just them kind of balancing on the spear and doing martial arts.
It was a very cool scene and concept, actually, but we don't really get to see much of the sort of wide shots there. It was all sort of close up of the top half of their body as they're fighting on the spear, and then every so often we get a shot of their feet sort of like twirling about on the shaft to sort of give the impression. Like I feel like if it was shot in sort of modern times, that particular scene would probably have been given a bit of a wider angle to. I don't know, not even the modern thing, because I think in previous movies there have been sort of scenes similar to this where they gave it a wide angle shot to sort of show the acrobatics of the actors. And
you see it a lot in the 70s, like a lot of those the Venom movies that we talk about. You see those full shots of them. This is, the 90s they use a lot. I think they call it Dutch angle, where they get these really sort of weird angles that they shoot at, and they do this like really like manic style of editing, and they mix it with the fight, and so you kind of get between the film, the way that the film is done, and the physical performances, you get a much more I don't know what you would call it, but a really wild end result. It's never dull. I'll put it that way. It's usually very, you always get the sense of momentum occurring. But one of the downsides of it is you might not always see all of the action. But I feel like in this scene, I don't know, I feel like I still saw a lot of the physical performances in this scene. I didn't feel like I've seen some movies where it's like they use that angle to completely disguise that the person can't even carry a sword or something. And I don't feel like that was going on here. I feel like this, like Norman Chu and Michelle Yeoh are both, veteran performers, and I feel like it was mainly done as a style choice more than anything else. But I don't know. I just like the whole idea, the contest of them, of her having to pull out the spear, and then she decides to just kick it in further and knock it out the other side, and that's how she wins.
Yeah, I thought that was like sort of clever way to end that, and it would be a very cool moment if in a RPG, in a tabletop type of game, to try and role play out. I don't know. And this feels like if we're keeping on going with the commentary that it might be related to feminism and all that. The rules proposed by men, don't always have to be adhered. Like, you don't have to follow the rules to the letter to win. You can go about it your own way and still achieve victory.
Yeah, I like the fact too that he pushes it way deeper there in near the end too, which basically him applying his strength basically opened it for her to have that reversal there. He kind of he just didn't see that potential.
Yeah, he didn't see the follow through or the consequences of his own actions. If he just pushes it through, she can push it the rest of the way through, and there she goes. But I like their little bantering during their scenes, going back and forth. I don't know. I like the flying chimp a lot. I thought he was great. And I like the fact that he said, okay, we're done today. We'll come back tomorrow. And just keeps it going. I really like that.
Well, I like that she earned his respect too in that. I like that he was willing to give her the respect when she won. He's like, okay, now we're going to have another match in 3 days. And he gave her time to heal, which was, I thought, I don't think Flying Monkey would have given her time to heal.
No.
I don't think any of these other people would have. But he's like definitely kind of cut from a different cloth than a lot of these other bad guys that he's hanging out with. And he seemed more delighted by the fact that he found a worthy foe than anything else. He's smiling a lot during the fight scenes in this.
Norman Chu always smiles, though.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Almost always.
Yeah.
But I was thinking at one point when they were doing this back and forth, that wouldn't it be funny if they ended up together because they're equal matches in the martial art, and they truly respect each other, that, that they're both so good. That would have been interesting.
If she just
but that couldn't happen.
Just left Donnie Yen to the at the end.
To Charmy.
You could have
Charmy.
To Charmy.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. I guess it would have worked out. Though I think, by the end of the movie, he was definitely much more interested in Wing Chun than Charmy. And the final fight scene too is I thought very good. The when she does come back and fight him, and she's using a lot of tactics to kind of defeat him. So like she gets him into that little room, and there's not space enough for him to use the spear, and so she's just basically able to completely control the fight inside there. And then when they start fighting without weapons, she starts clearly just using his physical power against him. So I know, any other thoughts on those fights?
Well, with that last one, you really get to see what Wing Chun is all about. It's all about the close infighting and being able to use the other person's power against them by being so close, because it takes so much effort and force to be able to strike from a long distance that when you get close in, they don't have that time to actually fight. So I thought that was a nice showcase of the Wing Chun style in that fight.
Yeah, and I don't really know much about Wing Chun. I've heard people that practice Wing Chun don't like don't feel that it matches what Wing Chun should actually be. But I feel like it's the action is so good, I don't really particularly care if it's like 100% authentic Wing Chun. But I also feel like, kind of like what you were saying there, is even if it isn't, it seems to be capturing the philosophy of it in the way that she's applying her tactics, and so I and just as a martial arts thing in general, I feel like the stuff in here she's making the decisions she's making as she's fighting, I can kind of feel them. Do you know what I mean? Like I can feel like why that was a good choice for her to make, and it feels like there's like a I don't know, just something about it kind of has a real fighting feel to me that a lot of movies don't. Like sometimes they'll do something really wacky that's that's sort of the perfect counter to somebody's move, but it doesn't make any sense in any way that I can imagine it really happening. But all of her stuff, they just seem like general principles and tactics that she was applying that I could comprehend. So I don't know. We're already coming up on the 50-minute mark. So is there anything that we haven't really addressed? I know we've only probably just scratched the surface of some of the topics, but anything that you guys wanted to get into before we head out?
I was just having a thought, like, would there have been any other actress who would have been able to do just as well as Michelle Yeoh had done in this movie? At this time, or just as a general thing, like, I guess, draw Champé Pei, but trying to think of it, if any other sort of notable.
I mean, there were
actresses.
Definitely other people that were good at physical performances, but I feel like I have a hard time seeing anybody else in this movie. But that might just be from years of watching it with her, and it's kind of like you can't really. If you asked me the same thing about the 1989 version of Batman, I probably couldn't imagine somebody else in that role.
Yeah, I mean, she really nailed the part. So I mean, someone else could have done it, but
yeah, because I guess Michelle Yeoh does have like a very heroic bearing about her. Like she just looks so noble and I don't know, like chivalrous is what I'd sort of describe her. Like, if I were to write a book to describe her, those were the adjectives that I'd use. Like she's not like a. I don't know. I think in my opinion, she's not like the traditional beauty. Her beauty is one of nobleness in the spirit type of thing. And I think that's sort of perfect for this role because, if we're talking about the founder of Wing Chun, sure, it's a folk legend, but generally speaking, we sort of consider them like to be noble heroes, right? And I can't think of other actresses which have the same sort of bearing as she does.
Yeah, I think she's got. I think she definitely is convincing as that sort of a figure. I would definitely agree with that.
I don't know. I was kind of thinking, what if they had put like a Brigitte Lin or somebody in there?
I think it could have worked. I think it just would have been a very different movie with her in that role. I think. I mean, number one, she's not the same physical performer that Michelle Yeoh is.
Right.
So that would, but she's, but in any movie I've seen her in where they've done martial arts with her, she can make it work because she's so good at the acting end of it and at getting the, getting all of the, she can sort of do that thing where you just believe that she is capable somehow. And so I don't know. I think it would have been a different movie though, because I mean, Brigitte Lin's pretty intense. Do you know what I mean? And and Michelle Yeoh, like I think is more like what Kenny was saying, which is there's like a nobility to how she is carrying herself. And I have no idea how it would have worked out if it was her, but I would certainly, I think it would have been something worth seeing. And I think Cara Hui was still active too in films at this time too, so she would have been another possibility. I don't know if she was making movies exactly at this time though, but yeah. So I don't know. Any other thoughts? All right. So I think we're all set then. So before we head out, I know I have some things that I need to announce. On our Patreon page, which you can sign up for, that'll allow you to, have influence over some of the content of the program and things like that through a voting system that we have. And one of the things that we vote on is our monthly theme. And the way that we're going to do this going forward is the first week of every month is kind of going to be an open week. That week we'll maybe insert any kind of movie that we want, but the remaining weeks are all about the theme of the month. And so next month, because of we held a vote and this is what we got, we're going to do ghosts and spirited beasts as our theme. And every month will be a slightly different theme. And so we'll announce what movies we're going to be doing in the next several weeks, probably in a day or two. We just want to hammer out our final list. And again, you can check out our Patreon, and we're thankful to everybody that has checked it out and is supporting. And so we'll be back on next week with another episode of Wuxia Weekend, and me and Adam will be on sometime in the near future with a discussion on Return of Condor Heroes, which I think Adam's getting so excited about. He's gone and started watching some of the Legend of Condor Heroes series. So
watching, yeah, I've got to fill in. There's not enough episodes to watch between each podcast now, so I have to fill the gap.
So maybe we'll hear a little bit about that, and yeah. So anyways, we'll see everybody next week, and until then, we'll talk to you later.